back with another scouting report video, but today is going to be a bit different. We're going to talk about two different players in the same video. This could allow us to get to more players in a shorter amount of time as we continue to work through this year's draft. Today we're going to be talking about Chris Bell out of Louisville and also Elijah Sarratt out of Indiana, who made some monster plays against Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship, which makes it feel like a perfect time to jump right into these two players for this year's draft, who I think a lot of people believe are in similar spots heading into this year's draft, which makes it even better. We'll kind of compare the two by really just talking about what these two players, in my opinion, bring to the table. So let's first start with Elijah Sarratt, because I think he has a much different game than Chris Bell does. Listed at 6'1.5", 213 pounds, a little bit on a smaller side in terms of frame, but still has that kind of typical wide X receiver, plays left wide receiver a lot for Indiana. He's a three-time now transfer, starting with St. Francis in the FCS, then transferred to James Madison, broke out nearly 1,200 yards, and then Indiana over these past two seasons. I like about Elijah Sarratt is I think there's potentially much more upside in terms of the route tree that you could actually ask for Elijah Sarratt to run. It really does start with his ability to get off the line of scrimmage. But I'll start with his hands first, because that's where it always starts with receivers, the ability to catch the ball. For me, I'm only slightly above average here as of now. Contested holds it back a bit too, because I'm only average in that spot. Where he shines to me is body control. His ability to work back to the football, his ability to work on the sideline, to clear himself out with his body, to open up some zone windows, to just play away from defenders. I think that's where he thrives. But as a pure pass catcher, I think it's closer to slightly above average to average in contested situations. I think sometimes he'll hurry that process when you talk about tucking the football to his body after the catch. I do think he's an excellent back shoulder target, which is what we've seen on display, and those are a lot of his highlight reels come into play. And he does set himself up really early for that back shoulder position. He's got a feel for it, instinctual feel to Elijah Sarratt's game that pops, get himself open, how to get others open. His overhand pass catching technique shows a lot of focus, specifically when the ball is on his frame, plays with soft hands. So shows the ability as an underhand pass catcher as well, specifically to go down to the turf. You see the body control, it's loose, it's fluid. He can open up a wide radius as a pass catcher. I just don't think he's overly powerful at the catch point, especially for his size. He doesn't feel like he plays that often. He doesn't create a ton of space at the catch point. I think he's got to be stronger through the tuck situations when he's trying to bring the ball to his body. I think he needs to be stronger there. At times it feels like he catches the top of the football, which really forces him to kind of juggle it. You'll see away from his body, he doesn't feel like a natural plucker consistently away from his body. It feels like his hands feel small when he's in those spots, but the flexibility is where he really shines. The late hands is also on display at times as well over the shoulder. You just has a feel for the game. For Chris Bell, I think he's a little bit better in this category. This is a full-time Louisville player, 6'2", 220 pounds, so a little bit of a stockier frame. Over the past two seasons, as he's become a full-time starter, has really taken advantage of that and shown steady production improvement over the years. He's just a more consistent pass catcher, and I think it comes back to the fact that he plays with tons of confidence as a pass catcher, and you feel the strength in his hands as a pass catcher. Level one, he catches everything with his hands, typically. He goes out and he attacks the ball. He's very quick into his transitions, and you just get that sense. He doesn't overthink it. He trusts himself in those spots. He maintains speed when he's running through the ball. He can pluck underhand passes with his technique, and he's fairly strong away from his body. I think he plays with strong hands as a pass catcher with the confidence when he's sitting in zone windows and immediately looking to get upfield and find a weakness in the defense. And I think he shows really nice footwork too for some body control when he kind of deadens on the sideline to settle himself down inbounds, kind of fall behind defenders. I don't think he shows the body control that Sarratt does, where he'll just actually fall behind defenders, even though he can kind of wall them off, and he has the skill set to do that. And also finishing through contested situations is still not great to this point. And again, he's also, to me, slow to get the ball to his body. Sarratt sometimes just not consistent actually tucking it, very quick to transition, but he's too slow to get the ball tucked to his body, and it leaves opportunities for it to be punched down. He's not finishing the process. Now, back to Elijah Sarratt for a second. This is where I think he separates himself, is his ability to get off the line. I think that for me, he has a good to very good release as of now, and it shows up with a lot of his agility. He's got more hip flexion, more agility. I think he's got plus foot quickness off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have the explosiveness that I feel with Chris Bell, especially when he's working off the line and attacking upfield, but I do like how when he attacks zone coverage, set himself up very early for success. He has a little bit of a sway when he's working off the line, which I think makes him less sudden off the ball as well. And his lateral footwork to me isn't overly threatening off the line of scrimmage in terms of the depth that he's actually going to cover off the ball. But he has a slight change of pace, which can be effective. He's got balanced footwork. He can attack bailing corners. He can attack off coverage very consistently. He's well connected with a lot of different route releases that he can run. He can really out leverage you with some elongated releases when he's trying to pry some leverage. And also when he goes to a three-step or a single step, there's variety to his game here. Now, his hand usage to me, less less impactful than a guy like Chris Bell. Up move, it's typically connected. It's just less effective to actually find break points consistently. I like his single step attack. It's very efficient. He can aggressively really elongate some of his releases as well. So for me, the looseness to his game, the above average foot quickness, that tends to shine a little bit more for a variety of releases and putting him on the ball, especially as he maybe gets a little bit stronger and he finds a way to use his hands a little bit better. He's just not overly explosive. As for Bell, you feel a lot of explosiveness right off the ball, and he's got an aggression to his game right off the line of scrimmage, which I love. He feels so attacking immediately off the line of scrimmage, and he has that footwork and short area control for that early leverage. He plays a lot more foot quickness than I expected. His get off is not outstanding in terms of getting off the line and really attacking upfield. I don't think he has ridiculous play speed, but he does show a little bit more explosiveness. You'll see that when he fires his knees, attacking off the line. He's got that three-step as well that's pretty controlled, so he can open up leverage for slants. I think his issue is just he's a little bit more stiff in the hips. He doesn't feel as loose when you watch him. When you watch a guy like Sarratt, he can tend to play a lot lower. You see consistent knee bend, but his hand usage is more impactful to me, right? He's much more impactful with his hands. He's got that attacking demeanor to, zone coverage corner. He'll kind of just push them off their coverage and create windows for himself. He does have the flexion to get lateral, just not as much for the bend for me consistently. He creates a little bit of shake up feel when he gets a free release and he doesn't have to deal with hands immediately. And again, he uses his hand timing well, where he can kind of create space by using an offhand as he starts to push upfield. He's just too upright at this point for me. Shows real strength in the ankles to kind of work through some of that early contact and continue to work on the play. Those aggressive early steps are effective. He does his single steps pretty well too. I think Sarratt holds usually his leverage a bit better right off the ball consistently with Chris Bell. His route tree also doesn't feel as diverse, but when you watch Chris Bell, I think early sometimes he can kind of get his eyes and lose some of that early discipline off the line, especially when he knows he's going into a drag, versus Sarratt, who feels like he holds it much more aggressively with some of the integrity, especially right off the line of scrimmage as well. I love the skip step aggression. He covers a lot more depth than I feel like consistently Sarratt does, which can put guys on their heels a little bit more. But I think he needs to be a little bit more decisive and really selling some of that early integrity. And he probably just needs more creativity, to be honest with you. I don't feel the change of pace that I get with Sarratt off the line. You just don't feel as much of that. You feel more of kind of a forceful release versus Sarratt, who feels a little bit more kind of fluid and nuanced to the way that he gets off the ball. So I feel two big differences there. And then as a route runner, just in general here, this is where, again, I tend to lean towards Elijah Sarratt, but I think in different ways, right? I think Bell is a slightly above average route runner. I think Sarratt's a good route runner. I think both these guys have some real route savvy in their own ways. They're a little bit creative. When it goes to Sarratt, there's a lot that I like, and a lot of it's back to pad level. He plays with knee bend, pad level. He can really flatten out routes very well. Level 2, level 3, he's always bent coming out of those routes. I like how he climbs up to off-man coverage, where he climbs the stairs and he creates early leverage, and you can see a nuanced approach to how he's going to create open angles. And also, to me, I like how he attacks blind spot coverage. He extends his strides early, which I like as well. He can really cover up some ground by that. He's not overly dynamic upfield, but he covers some real ground when he kind of changes the way that he strides. There's just more of a natural pace, I think, to the way that he runs routes. And he doesn't feel as much counting. Everything feels much more fluid just as a mover in general. When he's sitting down in zone windows, he typically gets himself really square to the quarterback. He sets up other receivers well because he'll kind of run his routes into those to try to work through big plays and then kind of seal his guy like a basketball player to get himself open. And I really like his discipline. I think his eye discipline is very strong. He holds it very long, and especially on some of those like outbreakers where he has to. The big problem is I think he loses speed. He loses speed into his breaks a bit, and I don't think he has an incredible second gear, which is typically going to force guys to overcommit. Or if he's in two-man, that's going to get them to work upfield and he can snap it back. I don't feel as much as that. I think he's much more efficient at the top of the route to snap his routes back than a Chris Bell is. Straightforward explosiveness. I feel much more fluidity and smoothness to his game. So when you watch him, the head bobs, the way that he creates level 3 space, like all of that's very consistent and it translates well for him, but I don't think he has a consistent second gear that becomes very threatening. He also uses offhand fairly well, similar to Chris Bell. Don't feel the great burst out of his level 2 breaks against man. You don't feel ultimate separation there. You definitely feel to get zone. I think he can be a zone beater, but it's more because there's a fluid, flat-lining ability where he can kind of work himself back to the ball. When you watch him in man, at times you just don't feel that separation where he's actually snapping off or getting away from guys or really, kind of changing speeds through breaks. You really don't feel that as much to his game. But I love the bend, how low he plays. It opens up so much in his route tree versus a guy like Chris Bell, who I think plays it a different way just in general. I don't think he snaps hit the top of his routes off that well. I stick with him as he's trying to break down and work back to the ball. I think it may limit his route tree, but he's successful level 1 underneath. He's very good after the catches we'll talk about, but then also vertically he can challenge because of some of that explosion that he does play with. He misses a bit of change of pace for me, which I think is a big problem here, but he is explosive. So maybe if you can add some more nuance to that route running, there is more upside to that element of his game because he does have some threatening ability with how explosive he will work off the ball initially, especially. And to me, what I think he thrives is zone coverage as well. He works so many of those mesh concepts that his ability to find zone coverage early, sit in the windows, I think he finds zone windows better than Sarratt, to be honest. Sarratt does it well, but I think he has a really good feel for here's the window, here's where I'm going to sit down, and here's where I can go do work and damage after the catch. Maintains respected, I think, vertical integrity when he's pushing upfield. It's not to the same level, but it's fine to this point. His eyes, to me, will just turn a little bit early on breaks when you're comparing the two directly, and he also can kind of lose his route pace when you think about slipping past cover two defenders, trying to pry those guys open. Again, to me, a little bit more stiffness to his game, but I do like how he, kind of bends his drag routes. He kind of leans into some coverage to try to create some spacing and open himself up a bit. He does press off coverage pretty darn well in zone coverage, and he does free others just like Elijah Sarratt does, so you feel that as well, that he's definitely not a selfish receiver. I think that he works through zone traffic incredibly well. For a guy for me that has much better short area footwork than I would have thought, controlled balance, he works through it and is very proactive to his movement. Like, you see him working through traffic and he can kind of feel it, and he gets out really early and creates very early spacing, and he has a plan that he can get to, and I think that all translates well for him. But his pads do rise a bit when you talk about sinking down at the top of the route. I think his balance is going to be a little bit questionable at sitting and kind of snapping routes off specifically. I don't think that's going to be his strong suit, especially against man coverage. But again, he really leans into his strength. He leans into kind of walling you off with his off arm, leaning into kind of just using my power to create separation through my level 2 routes and through the stem of the route as well. And it's hard to slow him down. I mean, level 3, guys may get a hand on his hip. He doesn't really slow down at all. He kind of just runs through those. But I feel like he feels he's counting his footwork a little bit more when you think about the angles to opening up defenders. But that physical frame is definitely there, and he's pretty decisive in that upfield push. So two different styles here. Now, both of them are effective after the catch, and this is the thing they both do well. I would take Chris Bell because of the consistency in his transition, but both do it well. I mean, Chris Bell, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's got real body control and quickness. He's got an unexpected burst as soon as the ball gets in his hands, and he's powerful in terms of contact balance. He's got a second gear as well. I think he's legit with the ball in his hands, and that's where he becomes a playmaker. Sarratt, on the other hand, I think his burst after reception is much more average, but he also shows some real nice contact balance and much more fluidity, I think, with the ball in his hands. A little bit of stop and start. You get him out in space where he can really kind of set up defenders. I think he becomes much, much more impactful in those spots, and I think his vision when he gets out in space is really strong as well to kind of find openings. And as a blocker, I like both these guys. I think Chris Bell brings a much more attacking style to his game where, to me, he kind of jolts defenders. You'll see him get involved in the run game, and he completely makes a difference at times when he can go dig out a safety or go hit a corner. Like, he makes a difference in run plays. He's got the build to do it as well. He looks to lead block when he's out in space. I mean, there's a nature to his game as a blocker that you fall in love with. He has some inside hand placement. He just doesn't always stay connected. Other times he's kind of lunging into blocks and just kind of throwing himself. And other times he gets caught watching because he doesn't actually go for it. Like, and instead of just find a sustain and create a wall, he's like, it's not there, and he kind of just stands. That happens a bit. But for Sarratt, I feel more consistency. Angles are going to be good. Hand placement's going to be good. You don't always feel the success that you can get with Bell at the point of attack. You don't always feel the actual, like, game-changing ability, but I feel like there's better sustain here with Sarratt to this point. So for me, I think they're similar. I think they are. I tend to lean to Elijah Sarratt because I think there's more flexibility in the NFL as of now within his game, but I think Bell has that upside. And also, I think his feel is just more natural to step in and play right away. But Bell, I think, is going to be maybe need a little bit more of a specific role. But I think if you can find that role for him, which is a lot of level 1 stuff, potentially get him on the move a bit, but really level 1 and a lot of vertical routes for him, and maybe just get the ball in his hands any way you can, I think you could really get something out of Bell that works, and he fits into a good – I don't know if he's like, hey, you can draft this guy and he's your one, and everybody kind of funnels around him. I don't know that he has that to his game, but I think in the right offense where that's kind of missing that, and they want that physical presence, the guy that's going to block, be a team player, I think he fits into that well as you continue to work on the nuances. Sarratt may have more of the number 1 upside, though I just don't feel like he's overly dynamic. He's probably a more consistent winner one-on-one immediately in the NFL, and against a lot of zone coverage, I think he's going to find more success. But the weird thing is I think Bell may have more upside to beating man coverage. It's just right now there's not as much nuance as you see with Elijah Sarratt. So for me, I like both these guys. You can see my final grades on the screen for both of them. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. If you enjoyed this, we'll do more. Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.